A priest has been killed in France after two armed men stormed a church service in Normandy and took hostages. Police eventually shot dead two people they believe to be the attackers. A member of the congregation is in a critical condition. President Hollande has just visited the scene. He says the attackers had pledged allegiance to so-called Islamic State. Also on the programme this lunchtime. Hate crime needs to be stamped out. The Home Office launches a review of policing after a sharp rise in incidents following the EU referendum. The battle for the Labour leadership goes to court. A party donor tries to stop Jeremy Corbyn from automatically being allowed to run in the contest. BT won't be split up, but is told to make Openreach, its broadband division, a separate company. And coming into land, the first round-the-world flight by a solar-powered plane completes its historic 16-month journey.
Here in the south, joining forces, plans for the Isle of Wight, Portsmouth and Southampton to come together are unveiled, but not everyone's happy. And swapping the plots for parking, the controversial move in a bid to cut commuter gridlock.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the BBC News at 1. A priest has been killed in northern France after two armed men stormed into a church service in Normandy and took several hostages. The priest has been named as 84-year-old Father Jacques Hamel. Another person who was in the church is in a critical condition. The attack happened in a suburb of Rouen and was described by the President, François Hollande, as a vile attack. Police eventually shot dead both hostage takers. The incident comes as France remains on high alert, nearly 2 weeks after 84 people were killed in Nice. The latest comes from our correspondent, Daniel Bircher.
In a nation already on a high state of alert, the response to this latest incident was swift. According to local media, at around 10 o'clock local time, two men armed with knives entered a church in a suburb of Rouen as a service was taking place. It's believed 5 people were taken hostage, including a priest and 2 nuns. Officials say the priest was killed with a blade and another person has been seriously injured. The 2 attackers were shot by police.
Les deux assaillants sont sortis et ils ont été neutralisés.
The 2 assailants left the church and they were shot dead by the security forces. Investigations are underway. We know that 1 man has been assassinated and 1 other person has been seriously injured and is fighting for life and is receiving treatment from rescue and firefighter services and from the medical teams. Operations continue, but the hostage-taking situation is definitely over.
The church is in Saint-Étienne-du-Rouvray. According to French media, the alarm was raised after one of those being held by the hostage takers managed to escape. Elite security units were quickly at the scene. The area remains cordoned off as investigators carry out their work and the church is searched for explosives. The priest has been named by the Archbishop of Rouen as 84-year-old Father Jacques Hamel. A Vatican spokesman said Pope Francis was horrified by the news. French President François Hollande has visited the scene. He said the 2 men who attacked the church had claimed to be from Daesh, using the Arabic name for the group calling itself Islamic State.
Passe à une épreuve, une de plus, parce que la menace, elle est très élevée.
Once again, we are safe. We are facing another challenge. The threat remains high, very high. What we have lived over the past few days and even few years. We are facing a group of IS who has declared war against us. We should face up to this war using all the means within the respect of the law.
Forensic teams are expected to stay at the scene for the rest of the day. France's anti-terrorist prosecution unit has said it has taken over the investigation. Daniel Bircher, BBC News.
Well, first, let's get the latest from our correspondent Hugh Schofield, monitoring events in Paris. And what's being said, Hugh, about the investigation?
Well, I can't add much more to what that very comprehensive report, but one thing that is being reported on the media in the last quarter of an hour or so is not a formal identity of one of the attackers, but the reports of one of the assailants. He hasn't been named, but what we're hearing on the radio and television is that police recognised visually one of the 2 bodies of the attackers and recognised him as a local man who had tried to go to Syria to join so-called Islamic State in 2015, been turned back by the Turks and had come back to France and been under some kind of control, maybe an electronic bracelet. It's not entirely clear. These are unconfirmed reports which have not been formally followed up by anything from the prosecutor's office or the police, but it does look, and this would have been suspicion anyway, that man.
Hugh, thank you. Apologies there. Hugh Schofield in Paris. Well, let's get the thoughts of our security correspondent, Frank Gardner, as well, because, Frank, the 6th attack, I think, in about 10 days in continental Europe. Is there a thread running through these?
Well, the only thread is that innocent people are getting attacked and killed. The motives are different in each case, although so-called Islamic State has so far claimed that it was behind the Nice attack, the one in Ansbach, and the Axe attack on a German train. I suspect they may well claim responsibility, or I use that term loosely, for this hideous attack in a church. It's important not to put them all into the same box, because what happened in Munich, the killing spree with 9 people killed, turned out to be a disturbed young man who had mental problems and was nothing to do with so-called Islamic State. That's in no way to exonerate Islamic State from the horrors that have been taking place. But that attack was far more akin to the kind of university campus rampages that we've seen in the United States in recent years. I have to say that the French police have reacted, I think, with commendable speed and efficiency in closing this down. They've been heavily criticised for failings and mistakes made in Nice, along with the authorities. In this case, they've closed this down rapidly and minimised the loss of life.
Frank, for now, thank you very much, Frank Gardner. The Home Secretary Amber Rudd says hate crime needs to be stamped out. She's ordered a review of how police respond to hate crimes after a sharp rise in the number of incidents following the EU referendum. Our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford reports.
Almost as soon as the EU referendum result was announced, reports started coming in of a surge in hate crime. The burnt shed of a Polish family in Plymouth, Eastern European children in Huntingdon branded vermin, a London mosque sent an envelope of white powder calling them filth, Nazi graffiti in Armagh in Northern Ireland.
Hello, Stephen. Nice to see you.
This morning, the new Home Secretary Amber Rudd met groups campaigning against intolerance as she published a new hate crime action plan and promised the government would take the issue very seriously.
There are no reasons ever for hate crime, and whether it's one incident or another, we're going to make sure that we always give out that message very clearly that hate crime needs to be stamped out.
There's no doubt that there was a spike in hate crimes after the EU referendum result, buildings being damaged, people being abused on the street. But officials in the Home Office believe that the peak has passed and the numbers of crimes are starting to come down. Police statistics show over 1,800 hate crimes in the week following the referendum, a 30% rise in just 1 week. In the next fortnight, there were over 3,000 hate crimes recorded. That was a 6% decrease from the peak, but still 20% up on last year.
Examples of these cases would be women walking down the street wearing the hijab, and a perpetrator who was a white male will shout out in their face saying, "Brexit, we will take you out. You're no longer welcome here. Pack your bags and leave."
Get back to Africa, this teenager shouted at an American travelling on a tram in Manchester at the end of June. Today's Home Office action plan includes improving the reporting of hate crime, improving the police response and improving support for victims, as well as working with schools to challenge racism and other intolerance. Daniel Sanford, BBC News.
Ofcom has rejected calls for BT Openreach, which runs the UK's broadband infrastructure, to be split off from BT. Openreach has been criticised by campaigners who say it provides woeful levels of service to millions of customers. But the regulator said separating the companies would take too long and has instead proposed that Openreach becomes a distinct company within the BT group. John Moylan has more details.
It's the company that connects millions of homes and businesses to the internet. But BT has been under fire for poor customer service and slow broadband speeds. So today the industry regulator announced the biggest shake-up in a decade to BT's internet arm, Openreach.
We are setting Openreach up as a distinct company, more independent from the rest of BT, a requirement to act in the interests of all customers, not just BT, and we believe that will deliver more reliable, faster broadband.
While remaining part of BT, Openreach will become independent and legally separate. To boost competition, its network will be opened up to rivals, and customers are promised a step change in the quality of service. Here in York, TalkTalk and Sky have been laying their own trial network, but elsewhere they have to rely on BT's Openreach to hook customers up. And they think that legally separating BT and Openreach doesn't go far enough.
You're dependent on detailed regulation, lots of lawyers poring all over what BT can and can't do. Whereas if you properly separate, create Openreach PLC, there's no need for all that complicated regulation, and it's very clear how much money Openreach are making and how much they're investing in improving our broadband.
It's not just rivals who believe that BT should be doing more. Last week, MP said that the company could be investing hundreds of millions of pounds more into its network and that it should be improving its quality of service. But today it welcomed the news that it won't be split up.
There is no evidence anywhere around the world that structural separation works. In fact, the examples, the few countries that have done it, have led to chaos in many cases, prices going up, no additional choice for customers.
This review is meant to make the UK a world-leading digital economy, but the row over splitting up BT is still far from over. John Moylan, BBC News.
The Labour Party's rules were misapplied when its National Executive Committee voted to guarantee Jeremy Corbyn a place on the leadership ballot. That's according to a case that's begun at the High Court. Lawyers for the Labour donor Michael Foster said that in bringing his case, he's seeking a proper application of the rules. At stake is whether the Labour Party will have to start its leadership race all over again. Our political correspondent Ian Watson has been following the hearing. So what's been said so far, Ian?
Well, I think the key thing, Jane, is just how important this court case is to Jeremy Corbyn's future. It's got huge implications. Michael Foster, that you mentioned, that Labour donor, has brought this case effectively saying that it's unfair that Jeremy Corbyn isn't required to get the same level of support from his fellow MPs as his challenger, in this case Owen Smith, that he should have to seek 50 nominations. Now, considering he got the backing of just 40 MPs in a recent no-confidence vote, he might struggle to overcome that hurdle. So if he loses this court case here, he could lose the Labour leadership as a result. Nominations would then be reopened. Now, what the QC for Michael Foster has been arguing this morning is that the rules should be applied in an even-handed way, and there's nothing in those rules that should give an incumbent leader like Jeremy Corbyn an advantage. On the other side of it, the other legal arguments that have been put in opposition to Michael Foster is quite simply this, that courts should be very wary about intervening in the affairs of a major political party which has already taken a decision to put Jeremy Corbyn automatically on that ballot. Those arguments will conclude this afternoon, but we probably won't get a judgment, Jane, until later this week.
All right, Ian, thank you, Ian Watson. Sharp divisions have emerged at the Democratic Party convention in Philadelphia. Hillary Clinton's name was repeatedly booed, despite the efforts of Bernie Sanders to persuade his supporters to back his former rival, who will be formally nominated as the party's presidential candidate on Thursday. Kim Gattas reports now from the convention.
First day of the Democratic convention, music, pomp and ceremony.
I hereby call the 47th Quadrennial Democratic National Convention to order.
But even the gaveling was a struggle. That's because she was only the stand-in, called in a hurry to replace a woman engulfed in scandal. The chair of the Democratic National Committee, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, faced a mutiny over leaked emails that showed the party had favored a Clinton victory.
Everybody now, settle down.
She resigned before the day was over, but the anger's been hard to contain. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders may have started a movement even he can't control.
We have got to defeat Donald Trump, and we have got to elect Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine.
Bernie! Bernie!
All day across Philadelphia, his supporters protested. In the evening, they were still booing. But for him, they cheered, so he tried again to get them on board, giving Hillary Clinton his most forceful endorsement so far.
Hillary Clinton will make an outstanding president, and I am proud to stand with her tonight.
Mrs. Clinton was not on stage tonight, but there were plenty of people who were ready to vouch for her character, and the history she is making.
Only one person who I believe is truly qualified to be President of the United States, and that is our friend Hillary Clinton.
There may have been chaos and booing during the day, but there was also a lot of enthusiasm this evening for Hillary Clinton. The big question now is, will this be enough to get the Democratic Convention back on track? Kim Ghattas, BBC News, Philadelphia.
Well, let's talk to Nick Bryant, who is in Philadelphia. A lot of division, it seems, there, Nick.
Yeah, for the second week running, Jane, we have had a very unconventional convention. Remember, these days they're supposed to be very tightly scripted, they're supposed to be intricately choreographed, they're supposed to be very on message, and we've seen quite the opposite of that here in Philadelphia. Every time that Hillary Clinton's name was mentioned at the start of the convention, it was boos. Boos echoed around this vast arena. When Bernie Sanders stepped before the convention and pleaded with his supporters to back her, he was booed as well. Michelle Obama, in an electrifying speech, managed to pacify the Sanders supporters for a while, but she didn't win them over, and many left the hall last night saying they would never vote for Hillary Clinton. What I would say, though, Jane, is that perhaps we got a slightly distorted picture by the theatrics that we saw on the floor of the convention, because if you look at the polling, 90% of the 13 million people who voted for Bernie Sanders say they will vote for Hillary Clinton in November. The Democratic base seems to be more united than the Democratic convention.
Interesting. All right, thanks very much. Nick Bryant there in Philadelphia. And the time, 16 minutes past 1, our top story this lunchtime. A priest has been killed in northern France after 2 armed men stormed a church service in Normandy. Still to come this lunchtime, airmail with a difference. Amazon begins trials of delivering to your door via drone.
And in South today, 3 years after Ford's iconic Southampton factory closed down, a new future beckons with the possibility of hundreds of new jobs. And what does Brexit mean for our farmers? We're at the New Forest show this lunchtime to gauge some reaction.
Now, how would you feel about drones delivering parcels direct to your door? For some, it's an efficient use of modern technology, but others are fearful of our skies becoming full of noisy, buzzing machines. Either way, the idea is being tested for the first time anywhere here in the UK by the technology giant Amazon, as our transport correspondent Richard Westcott reports.
It sounds like something out of Harry Potter. Thousands of parcels being flown through the air, then dropped off at your house. But drones delivering your shopping could eventually be a reality across Britain. We're not about to see drones delivering parcels onto our doorsteps anytime soon. It could be a few years. What this is about is working out how to do it safely. Are we going to need new laws, for example? How fast should they go? How high should they go? And of course, they're going to be going over people's gardens. So what about privacy? What about noise? How do you guarantee they're not just going to fall out of the sky? There are going to be people who just don't fancy the idea.
It would be a bit weird if it fell out of the sky, wouldn't it? Depends what they were carrying, I suppose.
I think it's great that you can be able to order something and have it delivered literally within an hour or so. I think it's just really revolutionary.
I think it's a really exciting thing. Yeah, more the better.
Just as long as it's safe and they're not sort of got cameras on them spying on everyone.
It sounds cool, but it's a bit weird.
Yeah, and like the postman's obviously like trusty, isn't he? He knows where everything is. Obviously, you don't know who's controlling the drone, so you don't know whether they're gonna just like take pictures of your house and stuff.
This ad from Amazon shows what it could actually look like. A machine that's part airplane, part helicopter would fly at around 50 miles an hour, 300 or 400 feet in the air. When it gets to your house, you drop a landing mat down and it delivers your package.
We take privacy extremely seriously at Amazon. We always have. And we're not in the business of surveillance. We want to be able to engage in safe parcel delivery.
The government says its Amazon partnership is a world first. eventually opening the skies to a whole host of companies who want to move goods through the air. All right, so it's not going to be like Robot Wars. But one of the programme's expert judges says there are some very human problems ahead.
Well, I guess the biggest concern is privacy, but it's not the only one. What are we going to do about criminal activity, hacking, stealing the drones, delivering drugs with them, bombing us, and also other companies getting them? Although Amazon say they have no cameras, how do we know that other companies won't? We need a broader societal discussion, not just the government and Amazon getting into a huddle for the sake of the economy.
The sky's the limit for drone technology, if they can convince people it's private and safe. Richard Westcott, BBC News.
NatWest and Royal Bank of Scotland have warned their business customers that they may be charged for holding money in accounts because of the current low interest rates. 1.3 million business and commercial customers could be affected. Let's find out more from our personal finance correspondent, Simon Gompertz. How would that work then, Simon?
Well, normally you deposit your money in the bank and you expect to be paid some interest at least. And what Royal Bank of Scotland and NatWest are warning their business customers is that they're introducing a rule enabling them, if they want to, if the business puts the money into the account, then the bank would actually charge them for keeping the money in the account. Now, that sounds crazy. Who would want to use a bank like that? But as you say, it's against this background of interest rates being very low. The Bank of England's base rate is 0.5%. There's talk that next week it'll be cut to 0.25%. Theoretically, it could be made negative. The reason for that would be to encourage businesses to use their money rather than keep it locked up and keep the economy moving at a difficult time. But look, that's the theory. The practice is that NatWest and RBS are saying they have no plans to implement this rule. It's just to give them the power. Other banks aren't going to do it. It's just for business customers if they did do it. Imagine if they did it for personal customers. It's a danger because people would simply take their money out and put it under the mattress.
Yes. All right, Simon, thank you very much. Simon Gompertz. At least 19 people have been killed and 20 injured, many of them seriously, in a knife attack at a care home in Japan. It happened at a centre for people with learning difficulties, 25 miles west of Tokyo. A 26-year-old man who used to work at the home later handed himself into the police. Katrina Renton reports.
These pictures show the massive response from the emergency services at the Centre for Disabled People where the attack happened. At 2:30 in the morning, Japanese local time, police say they were called by a member of staff who is said to have told them something horrible was happening. A man armed with a knife had started to attack residents, killing and injuring dozens of people at the home in the city of Sagamihara, about 40 kilometres southwest of Tokyo. Local people are shocked. A member of this man's family was a victim.
I cannot believe he has done something so cruel.
The centre was home to 149 residents. A 26-year-old man named in the local media as Satoshi Uematsu has now been arrested. He is said to have driven to a police station and turned himself in. It's understood he's a former employee of the care home. The chief cabinet secretary in Japan said there was no evidence the attacker had any links to the so-called Islamic State group, and a police investigation is underway.
I sincerely pray for peace for the souls of those killed and extend condolences to the bereaved families as well as those wounded. Police are currently investigating this incident to grasp the whole picture.
Police say the suspect wrote a letter to Parliament earlier this year threatening to kill people with disabilities. He was hospitalised but later released. Today it's reported he told officers he wished disabled people would disappear. The area remains cordoned off as police try to understand what has been one of the worst mass killings ever seen in Japan. Katrina Renton, BBC News.
The production company behind the latest Star Wars film, The Force Awakens, has pleaded guilty to 2 criminal charges after the actor Harrison Ford broke his leg on set. Harrison Ford, who plays Han Solo, was hit by a hydraulic metal door at Pinewood Studios in Buckinghamshire. Our correspondent Lizo Mazimba is there this lunchtime. Lizo, remind us what happened.
Well, this all goes back to that incident in June 2014 when Harrison Ford's leg was broken on the set of the Millennium Falcon spaceship here at Pinewood Studios. Now, there's no suggestion that Pinewood Studios were in any way at fault. Safety on the sets was the responsibility of the production company making Star Wars The Force Awakens, Foodles Production UK Limited. Earlier today at a hearing at Milton Keynes Magistrates Court, Foodles pleaded guilty to 2 charges under health and safety law. The court heard that during a rehearsal, Harrison Ford had been knocked to the ground and pinned down by a heavy hydraulic metal-tipped door, resulting in broken bones. Ford was, of course, reprising his role of Han Solo from the original films. The prosecution also added that it could have killed someone. The fact that it didn't was because an emergency stop was operated. Foodles disagreed quite with the level of seriousness of the offences, but did agree with the HSE prosecuting that they were serious enough for sentencing to happen at Crown Court rather than Magistrates Court, where this morning's hearing was held. Foodles is now facing a sentence of up to an unlimited fine. Sentencing will take place at Aylesbury Crown Court on August the 22nd.
Lizo, thank you. Lizo Mazimba. Now, the first solar-powered round-the-world flight has just been completed. The Solar Impulse 2 aircraft has flown 26,000 miles using only the power of the sun. It landed in Abu Dhabi in the early hours of this morning at the end of its historic 16-month journey. Just to tell you, there is some flash photography in this report by Amy Cole.
Arriving to great fanfare, the smooth and controlled touchdown bringing an end to what's been a remarkable and record-breaking journey. Solar Impulse 2 is the brainchild of Bertrand Piccard, who was piloting the plane for the final time.
Everything is possible. Why don't we dream more? Why don't we try more? And when I touched my wheels here, I thought, okay, it's a start.
The aircraft has the wingspan of a jumbo jet, but the weight of a family car. Using the sun's rays, it's powered by 17,000 solar cells peppered all over the wings, which drive 4 electric motors. Its mission? To promote renewable energy. The aircraft set off from Abu Dhabi on the 9th of March last year, heading for the Persian Gulf, then across India, China, America, and lastly Europe before returning to the Emirates this morning. The 5th leg of its journey from Burma to China was deemed to be one of the trickiest by the pilot and his compatriot André Borschberg because of the mountainous terrain.
Today it's the flight to China, Chongqing. If everything goes well, André will continue tomorrow morning with Solar Impulse to bring it to Nanjing.
For the team behind this wonder plane, a chance now to reflect and consider that maybe one day in the not-so-distant future, passenger planes could become a lot greener and cleaner. Amy Cole, BBC News.
Now, it seems that men from Holland and women from Latvia are head and shoulders above the rest of us. New research has revealed the heights of different nationalities, who's growing fastest and who's no longer growing at all. More details come from our 6'4" correspondent, Dan Johnson.
It's Dutch men who are towering above the rest of us, but the long and the short of it is that the world is generally getting taller.
We're not entirely sure why people are taller in certain countries. It's clearly partly genetic, but also it's the environment that people live in. So it's a question of how good is the nutrition people are getting, how good is the healthcare during their childhood, during pregnancy, and these act together to influence height.
So let me introduce you to Mr. and Mrs. Average around the world. Here in Britain, the average man stands at 5'10". The average woman is 5'5". But the tallest women are in Latvia. There, the average height is 5'7". But on top of the world's tallest league table are Dutch men at 6 foot. I happen to be taller than all of them at 6'4". Are you sure it's coincidence I got this job?
OK,
On London's Oxford Street, they're getting used to taller customers.
Working here, it opens your eyes. You do suddenly realise actually the population is that little bit taller. Whether it's now just sort of getting on the tube or hopping on a bus, you become certainly a lot more aware of it.
Got something for me then?
Yourself? No disrespect, but you're not even niche anymore. At 6'4", 6'5", we've got something for everyone, all shapes, sizes, heights, whatnot.
Far away from here, men in East Timor stand at 5 feet 3 inches, and Guatemalan women are on average the smallest at 4 feet 11. And in some countries in Africa and the Middle East, average height has actually reduced. So does biggest mean best?
I like being small.
How tall are you?
4'11". I have to wear heels everywhere.
I would like a little bit, that'd be nice. And a bit more hair. Maybe that would help, maybe a bit more hair on top of the height, and I'd be 6'5".
Yeah, 5'5", and I'm happy, yeah.
5'5", that's average for the UK.
Yeah.
You happy with that?
Yeah, I'm really happy with that. 6'2", I'd say.
You like a tall man?
Yeah.
Obviously not my husband.
So while size may always matter, we should of course remember that good things come in small packages. Dan Johnson, BBC News.
Right, let's move on. Catch up with the weather, shall we? Louise, hello, how's it looking?
Hi there, Jane. Well, I'm average height and average weather today, I'm afraid. But cast your mind back to last week. It was the hottest day of the year so far. We had summer proper with 34 degrees, perfect weather conditions for gathering in the hay. But today, cloudy skies, and yes, I think farmers might be happy with this forecast because we could get some rain a little later on this week. In fact, the next few coming days, cooler. If you've not already worked that one out for yourself, a fresher feel in comparison to last week. There will be some sunshine. It's not all doom and gloom, but there's also some rain in the forecast. Now, today, we've had an invasion of cloud from the west. Sheltered eastern areas have seen the best of the sunshine, and East Anglia and the southeast perhaps the best of the warmth today. But from that cloud out to the west, there's a rash of showers, particularly to the far north and west. And these are likely to continue into the afternoon. So for Scotland, for Northern Ireland, a plethora of showers into the afternoon, 15, 16 degrees, with a little more shelter and some sun. Perhaps a high teens not out of the question across eastern Scotland. Northern England, fewer showers here, but still some showers affecting parts of Wales and the southwest. Hopefully, we'll manage to dodge most of the showers across the southeast and into East Anglia, and we could see temperatures 23 or 24 degrees. But as we go through the overnight period, we will see some heavier rain pushing into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northwest England and Wales for a time. To the south of that band of rain, it's going to be a pretty humid night. And underneath the rain, close to the coast, a lot of low clouds, mist and murk. Fresher to the north, but rather breezy, with some showers continuing across the northern and western Isles. They'll be there first thing in the morning and stay there. Rain slowly eases away through the southeast during the afternoon tomorrow. And behind it, somewhat brighter, although still the risk of some cloud and showers across central and southeastern areas, and perhaps a degree or so fresher than we've seen today. Now, that dying weather front will clear out of the way. It's going to be replaced by another area of low pressure on Thursday. It looks likely that Thursday will be the day we'll see the heaviest of the rain, the most persistent. There's still a level of uncertainty just where that rain is going to be sitting on Thursday, but it'll bring some wet weather to Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and Northern England for a time. Some of it heavy, maybe with some hail. That will move away, and as we move towards the weekend, the isobars open up. The wind direction a fresher northwesterly, but it does look as though the weekend is set to quieten down. So with summer holiday season well and truly in full swing now, my advice is these are likely to be the best places to go for a nice day trip as we head towards the weekend. Jane.
I like the Duchess. Thank you very much, Louise. Thank you. And that is all from us. Now on BBC One, it's time for the news wherever you are. Have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.